Hi, my name is Bruce Bolger, and I'm founder of the Enterprise Engagement Alliance, dedicated to helping organizations of all types enhance performance through a strategic and systematic approach to people management across the enterprise. And that's all about updating all of our practices to take a stakeholder approach. How is everything that I'm doing in my part of business affecting another part of business? And what is the fundamental value being created for the organization? And having been in the meetings and incentive business for a long time, I have a very big believer that we have to blow up the old model, that people do not want to get on an airplane to just listen to lectures and be in auditoriums all day. But they do want to get on an airplane and they do want to travel. So we're here with top experts, first off, who can refute what I'm saying. And no, they could say it's all, Bruce, you're all wrong. Okay. So this is going to be an open dialogue with people who have been around the corner on meetings and incentives for many years. And Jaki Baskow, she's founder of Baskow Talent. If you've seen talent booked in Vegas for corporate meetings, there's a very good possibility Jaki had something to do with it. Ira Ozer, he's founder of Innovation Meetings. He has been truly an innovator long before COVID in making the point that no, folks, come on, when we're getting people together, let's get them focused on key goals. We've got Melissa Van Dyke. Most everybody in the meetings and incentive business know her. She's Senior Vice President, Innovation for Creative Group, leading meetings and incentive company in Illinois. And then Andrea Doyle, also who many people, of course, know in this industry. She's executive editor of Skift Meetings. And just a quick little overview before we get started here. Uh, just so you all know, EEA offers a lot of free resources. You go to enterpriseengagement.org. It's almost overwhelming, but we're stakeholder capitalists. We believe in paying it forward, helping you do better, whether or not you pay us any money. So take advantage of all of our many resources. We always like to thank the many organizations. These are customers, they're not sponsors. These are people that we are helping enhance their business or who have paid us to help them in other ways. And then finally, we work very closely with an organization called Purpose Point. These are CEOs that are dedicated to a strategic and systematic approach to achieving their goals through people, and they are looking for best practices on how to make all these tools work better. And finally, a little note from Skift Meetings. They're holding in September a meetings forum. And if you are seeing this now live, or if you are seeing it, or of course, most of you will be seeing it streaming, you can stop your screen right now and pause, I should say, the show right now, scan that little QR code and get access to an application for your upcoming event this fall. So I'm now going to stop the share. Thank you so much for your patience, everybody. And, Andrew, I'm going to start with you because you, in a way, helped kick off this whole discussion when I believe your CEO or publisher published about 6 weeks ago a similar plea.
Mhm.
Folks, come on. No, stop doing this. We did it. It's time for something new. So what is your view and your take on the importance of really reinventing, not changing or not eliminating, but reinventing the format of events where we're asking people to take their time from their family and office to go there?
So one of the best quotes I've heard recently was Ken Halsinger from Freeman, and he said it's time to throw Sally out the window. And who is Sally? Sally is the acronym for same as last year. We can't keep doing things the way we do it year after year. People want to be excited. People aren't going to attend a conference just to attend a conference. Those days are over. The newer generation isn't gonna, they don't feel like, oh, I'm part of this association, so I need to go to this association meeting. They want to get something out of it. And you know what? If you could do it on Zoom, don't do it in the room. One of the biggest reasons they go to conferences is to meet people and to network. So, and I know you had talked about return on investment, but today I think the most important thing is return on emotion.
And we'll get to that. Jaki, you're at the front lines. You have people asking you for talent. And I'm going to be, I can be blunt since I don't have anything to worry about. I think the clients are the problem. I think the clients are the coming back and asking for Sally. What are you seeing? Or are you seeing a change in the client saying, no, come on, Jaki, if I'm going to get a celebrity, I want her to interact more, or is it the same? Are we back to Sally? Oh, you're
Oh,
muted,
you're on
Jaki.
mute.
You're on mute still. Not yet. Why don't you work that out? I'll move that to Melissa so you're not under any stress. But right now you are still on mute.
I think
Melissa, are you
Oh,
seeing, oh, there she is. Great, Jaki. So is it Sally or your clients beginning to ask for Mary? Oh, you're muted still. The red is off, but you are still muted.
Hear me now?
There you
yeah.
are. Yay.
I'm seeing people like they want to do like same time next year. And I try to give people something different, something memorable, because people don't want to sit in that ballroom and see the same thing. You know, I booked some of the same violins and drummers and things like that to open a meeting. Now I'm going more creative with people and trying to talk them into like maybe an Alex Dowis from America's Got Talent that creates a message on that screen that's so memorable that people are, you know, if you create a memorable, magical experience, people are going to remember that a year from now, and they're going to say, what are they going to do next year? I'm looking forward to going to that meeting. Because, you know, you have to keep people engaged. And it's not just about what the planner wants or, you know, the CEO, it's the whole engagement of everybody sitting in that audience.
So Melissa, what are you seeing? Are you seeing the clients? Listen, I already know your company well enough to know you're pushing them, but are they interested in really in a new version, in getting away from Sally?
Yeah, and I would say any meeting planner at their core wants to try new things, wants to new things. I would say in fairness too, as the economy was coming back, as we were opening up, it was crazy. There were a lot of supplier challenges, there were a lot of venue challenges, there were staffing issues. So going with the core agenda was safe because it was the only thing staying the same, right? When you had all of this upheaval. So, out of fairness, I think in our first couple of years back from the great pandemic, that makes sense. We are starting to see, though, now that we've got a full season under our belt, clients really being willing to step in a little bit to, okay, we have our agenda. How do we blow this apart and think about the attendees who are going to be in the room? Now that we know that logistically a lot has settled, so that we can tell a better story for our brand and for the experience. Yeah. We're
Thank you.
seeing that start to shift. Yeah.
And I think that makes just total sense. So, Ira, the reason I invited you to be on this is that you've been promoting a concept called innovation meetings, and this is not meant to be a commercial for you in any way, but it's something I know that you really advocated, and your concept was, and well, I'll let you say, well, what was the concept of innovation meetings in terms of making meetings more purposeful?
Right. So Bruce, thanks a lot. The idea of innovation meetings, we design meetings that are focused on innovation, not being innovative, and that's really important, creative and things like that, but literally getting people together to identify problems, challenges, and opportunities facing their business or industry or association, whatever the group is. And then through the collective brain power, innovation style, expertise, and interest of the attendees to literally come up with potential solutions to those problems. And so this applies to any business, any kind of industry, any kind of association, and ideally use the destination and venues within the destination to create experiential aha moments so that innovation is not happening in a vacuum of the same old conference room and breakout rooms. And frankly,
Why don't you hold it? Oh, go ahead, finish, please.
I've been to, I go to a number of industry, even the meetings, incentive conventions, the MICE industry events, and we still do the meetings 2.0. It's experts speaking to the audience, and the audience are basically experts. You'll probably address this later. So having more interactivity of what are the problems and issues that individual specific groups of people are interested in, how do we solve them? That's the
And
hard.
by the way, I did a bad job here, folks, because actually I meant to introduce Ira as the segue from, all right, we think we've proven we got to do something new. I think a lot of people agree on that, but now let's focus on how. All right, let's get into the specifics for the rest of this session. creative brainstorming is what are the things that either you'd like to do that clients haven't yet bought or examples that have. So Ira, you kicked it off by talking, hey, why don't we get people focused on solving problems? And I think that's a great format. We're going to get back to that. So Jaki, you and I've been very involved with this too, getting celebrities. And I think that celebrities, and by the way, Andrea's publication just did a very interesting article about the dangers of getting celebrities because
I
some
heard.
show. But that's another story. But Jaki, I've always thought that this idea of having a celebrity on the stage for more than about 5 minutes is a no waste because I can see that celebrity from afar anyway. How can we use celebrities today so that people really feel that they get to know them, that they learn about them, not from a stage, but the way we really like to meet people? Or is there something, new ways that we can use celebrities since you're a booking agent?
Some of the celebrities, like I just did a meet and greet with Gene Simmons from KISS for a chiropractic convention. And I think that
That's
people,
appropriate.
it was interesting. He happened to be my ex-neighbor, so I reached out.
That's so great.
So, I try to go like a step out of the box, and now they're asking me who I can do this year. And I don't want to just give somebody like a speaker or a celebrity or just throw somebody at somebody. I try to look at their crowd, is it a younger crowd or is it a crowd of all ages? And like, I'll give you an example. I'm friendly with Kevin Costner. He just invested a lot of his own money into Horizon. So he has a lot to say on a Q&A. Tom Selleck's one of our new speakers, and he has a lot to say about, like, just say for a chiropractic convention, he will talk about a little bit of his own pain and everything. So people have to relate to what that person's saying, not just get up there and be a celebrity. I try to get somebody that people are going to be, they're going to feel good. They're going to be empathetic. That celebrity can touch that person that's in that audience, not just book somebody because they're famous.
Can I build upon that?
Please.
So I wrote a story this week about Jason Sudeikis. He was supposed to speak at the Society for Human Resource Management annual conference. 26,000 people were in attendance. It just turned out that the WNBA and Caitlin Clark were next door to the McCormick Convention Center. So he decided to ditch his keynote and go to the basketball game and was photographed at the game.
You're kidding me.
So, I mean, so he had a
Good.
commitment that it didn't really mean anything. And not only was it disrespectful, but, they were lucky enough to get Al Roker as plan B, and supposedly he did a fabulous job. But why I bring this up is in interviewing people for the story I wrote, they talked about the fact that if you do use a celebrity speaker, don't let it be plug in. Like, make sure it is unique to that group and not a canned speech. So I agree with what Jaki's saying. If you could personalize it, that's what they want. And then if you can get that
Absolutely.
speaker to, mingle with the group and be on hand for meets and greets. But then also in doing the research, I found celebrities are great for entertainment purposes. But today people want to hear from industry experts when it comes to a keynote.
Yeah.
we'll get
Or
to
thought
that.
leaders. Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to get, thank you so much.
Bruce, can I add to that for one quick second?
Sure.
So I heard a great performance by a singer named Skip Martin. Skip was lead singer of Kool and the Gang for 20 years. And he was fantastic. He rocks the audience and all that. He's won Grammys and won Emmys and all this. But I had a really good conversation with the guy afterwards, and I realized he had a lot to tell in stories. He's done a lot of work for children's literacy programs and all these other things. So I basically am working with him to develop a keynote speaking program that ties into music customized to the group. So I think taking not just entertainers, but also that can really work with the group is kind of a new thing we can do.
Well, again, that's not plug and play.
Not plug and play at all.
Makes it really special.
Yeah.
And I think, well, let's discuss and get back to other ways that we can use talent. But Melissa, I want to talk a little bit about the whole concept of reversing the amount of time that we spend. Right now, I think there's an old 80-20 rule, if you really figure it out. At most events, it's 80% auditorium time or panel discussions like this. And frankly, I think this is a fabulous, you guys, I'm learning a bunch already, but anybody can watch this at any time. They can stream it.
Yeah.
So what the heck do I need to spend a lot of time on panels unless it's tied to interaction afterwards, right? Unless that's so Melissa, how are you recommending that people take
I would say, take the talent. How do we use talent? How do we think about the time that we're bringing people together to make sure we've got the right balance?
Yeah.
And I would say one of the things we're talking a lot with clients about is how do you create a shared emotional experience? Because regardless of what it is that you're trying to do, I'm not going to remember anything. That's how our brains work, right? I have to have emotion tied around it. Whether that's in a ballroom or whether that is leading up to the ballroom, how you create that shared emotional experience is paramount. So if you're using talent, for example, and you're in the ballroom, it's all about how you create a really festive shared emotional experience. Like we had Katy Perry in the ballroom. Like people know what's capable in a ballroom now with a very high energy discussion. But if you're also going to be in those spaces and you have to tell a story, how do you create visuals, right? Using digital LED screens in that space so that you're telling a story that's not just a talking head with a microphone. There are ways in production, and our attendees who are under 40 know how this looks, how to do that in ballrooms and even in jungles, for heaven's sakes, at EDSM festivals, right? So, and then it's how do you use that talent as well to extend the conversation? So we had Simon Sinek in one of our conversations, and then afterward he did a book signing, and a meet and greet. And interestingly, we had Katy Perry and Simon Sinek. The energy around Simon Sinek was just as great as it was around Katy Perry. So I wouldn't necessarily say that we always lean into entertainment as something that people are craving, but truthfully, just hearing from thought leaders can be something, and getting to interact with them can be just as engaging.
Well, what's so interesting is that we just did an analysis of LinkedIn posts and what gets the most views. And what gets the most views are business leaders sharing nuggets. Frankly,
Insights.
for me, they're platitudes because I heard it since I was 20. But for young people, it's new. And that's what gets 15, 20,000 views.
Can I share?
Emotion, please.
So I spend hours and hours and hours on working on my stories, researching, interviewing people. And then, I post my stories on LinkedIn. So if I get 30 likes, I'm happy. I went to the opening of the Fontainebleau and met Lenny Kravitz and just posted a photo of Lenny and I. Thousands and thousands of likes.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, it was just a photo.
And to your point, Melissa, it doesn't have to be a rock star. Although, like Matthew McConaughey, he's come out and said he's a stakeholder capitalist. Wow, okay, what does that mean? So yeah, there are, that are really. So anyway, Ira, you raised an interesting point before. I'd like to pick up on it. This whole idea, and you just said it. I go to an event, and the people around me are the experts.
Yep.
They're the experts. And this ties into what Melissa said. People want to hear from thought leaders. Well, guess what? A lot of these people in your audience have been there, done that, seen it for 30 years. And by the way, those guys are like me, are gone. We won't even go to these things anymore. I don't need it to listen to these platitudes. But the young people, okay, for them it helps. But Ira, how can we change the format so we can put the spotlight? And I don't mean getting rid of celebs. Look, they're the emotional broad connection. And we'll even talk more about that. I'm not saying get rid of them. I'm saying do what you're already saying, make them more meaningful. But Ira, think of formats where we can get people together sharing expertise. And so that maybe 50% of the event, they're together.
Yeah, that's great. A lot of companies have roundtables. Either it's just randomly at a lunch, or they'll have specific industry topics that you might want to participate in. And sometimes those roundtables are pretty good. You have experts saying, oh, I want to be on something in the meetings industry. Maybe it's travel logistics, and someone else wants to be on room block management or something, or whatever they are. But what I find is the conversations can be great and some of the learning can be great, but rarely are any notes taken, or is there any follow-up action plan? And there are innovation technology and other platforms that could be used to actually capture those problems and potential solutions. And then maybe groups want to stay working together after the conference is over.
Yeah.
So in other words, go ahead, Melissa.
Can I build on that? Because I think
Please.
that's a phenomenal point in how we bring people together for innovation and collaboration. And when we're designing programs, one of the things we've realized, 40% of the workforce in 2025 is going to be between 20 and 40 years old, right? So how we're engaging them, how we co-collaborate in the development of how this plays out is really, really important. And they want that interaction. And we're seeing things like, in fact, we're doing this an event coming up, like Fishbowl, where you have an inner circle and an outer circle, and you're exchanging time. It's timed, and everybody's a part of the conversation. You have multiple fishbowls happening in innovation and people taking notes, and then those are made into a white paper after. But there are different, even analog ways, right? In rooms, how we use space to bring people together, things like fishbowl concept or kind of some innovative ways in the room to pull people together to help them have conversations is something I think we don't talk about enough. Tyra.
Can you elaborate on the fishbowl?
The fishbowl concept? Yeah. So it's where you have an inner circle of individuals talking about a topic. In our instance, it's going to be 10. And then you have an outer circle of perhaps like 30 people, right, who are sitting around listening to the conversation. You cannot talk if you are on the outside of the circle. You can only listen, but a timer will go off. Then you can go in the middle of the circle and you can talk about the topic. So you're constantly building on the topic. Everyone has the same topics, and it's interesting to see where each fishbowl ends. So yeah.
That's a great idea. I've never heard of that.
Well, Jaki, now tying this in, and again, I've managed big trade shows and hired talent, big name talent. Not all of them are great with people. A lot of them, just want to get there. Oh, check your audio. We want to hear you. So let me ask you this. What about the idea of having a fishbowl approach or Iris concept of all these roundtables where your talent is wandering around while they're working, listening? And, they had to fly them there anyway. They're going to give up the half day. They're going to charge you anyway, even if they do a keynote. And instead of them spending an hour on the stage, I could go to Simon Sinek's website on YouTube. I could see everything that man has ever said, right? But what if he's actually wandering around? Is talent receptive to getting more personally involved and sharing their, their stories in smaller settings after they spoke?
Yes, in fact, I love what Melissa said. I've been in one of those, and I find it very intimate, and you find out what each person, you become friends with people at the table and find out what their thoughts are. And I love that. And I do have some entertainers and some speakers that will do that. Some of the bigger speakers, depending, I try to approach them in the beginning with it's not just about getting up and giving a speech. Like we had Shaquille O'Neal at an event, and he talked downright personal about everything. He came back into the audience and he talked to the people after. Yeah. Magic Johnson did the same thing and ended up giving tickets, like 40 tickets to, one of his games. And then afterwards, Shaq came up to our party and he spun music for 25 minutes. So people got to interact with him. They got to talk with them. People want to be up close and personal, not just see them, but I find that they want to take away a message. It's not just hearing a celebrity speak. Mm-hmm. They want to hear what their troubles and woes are and how their successes are. It's just like a keynote speaker. You could stick anybody up there. Andrea happened to see a guy named Nick Santamatasso that we hired. He has no arms and legs. He opens for Tony Robbins. He opened up with, why is everybody so angry at the audience? And he went into this whole thing about releasing, and it almost became, it was a message, but everybody in that audience was in tears and felt so good when they left there. He almost did like a cleanse at the end about getting in touch with your inner child and releasing what you're mad at about business or your life. People need that experience, and I love when people leave and they go, I remember that we used so-and-so 3 years ago, and I'm still thinking about him yesterday.
Well, because he touched their lives. And of course, the big opportunity is when he then gets off the stage and you have the meet and greet, or there's some opportunity for people to really mingle with him. So Andrea, you're planning a meeting. In fact, you're going to have a little challenge here. I'm going to put you on the spot. Kidding. In September, you're going to have a big event. What are you going to do so that someone like me doesn't look at it and go, oh, I could go on Zoom and see all of that? And so we need to go there to, how are you going to address that issue?
So we're taking something similar to Melissa's concept of, we don't call it a fishbowl. So we have speakers and we have panels throughout the day, but after each, we're going to have table discussions so that the audience, like you said, people in the audience are industry experts. So let's hear from them. So it's not going to be just sitting in the audience listening to people on stage. There'll be, and we also do it TED style. It's about 15 to 20 minutes, and then let's bring it to the audience. And Bruce, I invited you to be one of our table moderators.
Thank
We'll
you.
have experts at each table that are going to be moderating the conversation.
So Melissa, how much are you seeing of taking more time away from the panels and the plenaries? And by the way, I oftentimes feel, no offense, folks, but when you put too many speakers in plenaries and panelists, they're advertising themselves. And you feel it. You actually feel that they're like, and you even see it on LinkedIn. They go, "Oh, so proud to be speaking here." No, wait a minute, you're a servant to us. So, to me, Melissa, how much are you seeing a receptivity to getting our experts onto the floor and making them part of the experience, and maybe being facilitators, or just, I was at an event once, actually many years ago, where they had the big shot. It was a professor. Okay, he was a big draw, and so everybody had an exercise like I was talking about, and he wandered around and he went
Yeah.
up to each table and he said, "Folks, how are you doing on this?" And then he was the judge at the end, because each table then came up with their solution, and then they think they even had a little prize, and somebody won something. They could go out to dinner or something. So it became a little bit of a contest of fun, but the expert was living with them, part of it.
Sure.
Are you seeing people going to that kind of more interactive format, or would you recommend it?
I think it depends on the purpose of
Yeah.
the event, right? We sit with our clients. What do you want the audience to know, feel, and do when they walk away from the event? But I think it's both and, to be quite honest. Jackie, you gave a great example of how people came together and they had a shared emotional experience with a speaker. We know from the data that people, especially the younger generations, don't have that third place, right? You used to have your home, your school, and then your church or your social organization. Everyone's looking for that third place, which is where concerts and those types of things and gyms, and everyone wants that shared emotional experience. And that's where having speakers, I think that is a very, very important part. But you've got to be super intentional about it, right? And then, yes, depending on what it is that you're trying to accomplish, pulling your experts in, now that you have emotion, even as a part. What I love about what Jackie just talked about is that there is some level of emotion that's already a part of the conversation, and it gives the individuals in the audience now who can collaborate, who can innovate, and an opportunity to be vulnerable, to have conversations that are vulnerable and to bring new ideas. So I think both kind of need to happen. It's not just putting people together and saying go innovate or talk about the things. It's about creating an environment where people can be their authentic selves, bring emotion, and you can use talent to do that. And then once they're there, start innovating or having conversations where they can collaborate and innovate that are led and instructed. And yes, we are seeing clients open to a balance of that in their agenda, and now wanting to look at their agenda differently.
Well, thank you. Go ahead.
Building upon what Melissa said, I wrote a really fun story a few months ago about Taylor Swift and what meeting and event planners can learn from Taylor Swift. And what does she do? She creates emotion, she creates community. With the bracelets, everyone.
Agency, I get to choose how I engage via agency, right? I dress up, I can bring my, my Taylor Swift self to that. Absolutely.
Right.
Well, I have a 5-year-old daughter who's a granddaughter, I mean, a total Taylor Swiftie all the way. I hear her every day. But Melissa, you brought up something, and Taylor Swift does this. You brought up something very important. What is the purpose and goal and objective of your organization? I forgot to start with that. Everything is based on that. And the measurement then is always against the purpose, goals, objectives, and even the values, right? What are the values that you want to come across? So thank you for getting us back on that, because really everything does focus on your purpose. But Ira, getting back to this idea of because we do need keynotes, because story at the end of the day, Ira, isn't it always about a story? That a great event has a story. And by the way, that's what I saw the Taylor Swift movie, and I had to, she tells a story there, and that identifies so much with so many young ladies and men around the world. It is actually emotionally moving to see that. So, and she's up on stage. So Ira, how can we apply that to a meeting with its purpose, goals, and objectives? So we have that emotional connection, but then people get a chance to connect with it together. Are there new ways to do that?
Yeah, I agree. There has to be a storyline. Every great speaker is really just a great storyteller, and it's how we involve people to tell their own story. And I think that's what we're, the essence of what we need to do. Everybody is either an expert or they're not. Maybe they're young and they have to learn, but by being told and given the opportunity to participate, we're encouraging them, we're recognizing them, and we are engaging them. It's usually engaging to say, hey, you know what? You have a lot of expertise. Could you share your story with us? And that gets a lot going, a lot of energy too.
So Jaki, what is the format? I've really thought today that a really great format that is underused with stars or good leaders are town halls, where instead of having a stage, you have almost, and maybe it's your fishbowl concept, you have a circular thing. And you put Simon or that famous, or that, and by the way, it could be no one you've ever heard of. You could work for a major engineering firm, and this would be the top engineering lady, right? What do you think about or are we underutilizing town hall formats?
I think so. I think it's like when you see somebody on a stage or somebody sitting with you in a fishbowl up close and personal, people want to hear, I find that people want to hear your challenges, like maybe a big star lost all their money and how they're reinventing themselves, because people want to feel your pain, but they want to feel your joy also, and they want to feel your hope. I have a client that every year, it's a real estate company. Nobody knows who the speakers are. Nobody knows who's going to appear. Most of the time, like we had Molly Bloom there, and she talked about how she went from nothing to making millions of dollars to all of a sudden, losing everything, almost going to jail, and then reinventing herself as a speaker, and all about reinvention, because life is all about change. And I find that people are asking right now a lot about change.
Well, it's funny because I've never, I haven't been involved with Oprah Winfrey in any way, but the feeling I get about her, if you kid her on a good day, is that she's a fabulous person for a town hall type of approach, because when a town hall approach, people get to share ideas together, right? And,
Yes.
the stage is who wants to raise their hand in front of 2,000 people and have a spotlight on them, to ask, the famous person a question. To me, a town hall is so much more intimate. And you see that in the presidential town halls, right? The political town halls. People can just stand up. And then afterwards, when you're in your break, I think one of you said it, you said it, I think, Jaki. You've established relationships now you want to expand on. So, Andrea, there's been a whole thing about companies, and this kind of happened after George Floyd, the CS corporate social responsibility thing. And I think, and I must confess, I am a little bit of a skeptic, not about people doing good things. I think it's wonderful. But I am a little bit skeptical about having them take precious time from a trip that they have either earned or been asked, and then maybe even felt guilted into it, right? So I'm wondering whether, first of all, I could be wrong. And so I do want to talk about that, because that's something, but to me, and I'll start this off as a catalyst and then go around to get all of your thoughts on it. To me, the best corporate social responsibility is when it's linked to the purpose, goals, and objectives of the organization, so that it doesn't look like virtue signaling. And then number two, if it's really organic, it's usually where everybody comes in and packs up boxes for an hour in the auditorium and then go, yay, and they get a little LinkedIn thing, and hopefully some kids were made happy. But to me, isn't it more meaningful to get people out actually into the community and actually hold an event at a restaurant that's, outside of Vegas? There's some really cool places outside of Vegas where you can get an amazing meal with locals or something. Melissa, is there some way that we can take that? Again, we did another show on this, and to me, the best corporate social responsibility is to bring your business to the local indigenous communities and help those local businesses. But what do you think about that? And again, push back if you think I'm wrong.
Well, yeah, certainly CSR has been a part of the conversation. I don't know, for all the times now, it seems like, right? And in terms of the local community, I think we have to be sensitive to sometimes, can the local community absorb 2,000 individuals at the last? We are seeing, I will say, interestingly, an uptick in dine-arounds. So there is more of a desire to go into a smaller environment, to have an intimate meal with, in the local community. From a CSR perspective, overall, I think where the conversation is moving, and I think this is where it should move, is from just CSR itself into legacy. So not where are we responsible, but what is the legacy that we're leaving with this particular experience that we're creating? We worked with a company, Mudica, and this wasn't our event, but they wanted to have an event at a castle. And they got the castle in Italy, but part of the proceeds from the event went back to fund the maintenance of that castle and the land in the future. We've built gardens for communities that we've been a part of, and with programs, and people actually go back and visit those gardens. So I think anywhere we can start thinking less about what's our responsibility and and moving it to what's our legacy with this experience, I think we'll start asking the right questions. And I think people already are, in terms of how we kind of shift how experiences show up in communities.
That's such a great point, because it's really, how do we create value? It's not virtue signaling. And that's a fantastic idea. And if you bring your events to, or part of you're not going to bring 1,000 people to a small little, village, but if you're supporting that, then that village has an incentive to maintain it, and they have the money to do it. Ira, what are you seeing in terms of, and again, I love your idea of innovation, and I don't want to steer away from that, and we're going to run out of time, but in terms of, you've been involved with so many, you go to more meetings than anybody I know on earth, because you do that professionally. Okay. So what are some of the things you've seen that are really unique and creative? You don't have to name any event where you really walked away and went, wow, that made me glad I came here.
You're talking about relative to CSR or anything?
No, just in general now.
That's a good one.
And if you want to think about that, I can easily move on to Jaki and come back to you.
Yeah, go ahead, because I'll try to think of a great event.
A few years back, I did IBM Golden Circle with Skip Martin, as a matter of fact. He was with Kool and the Gang in those days. And everything that we created, I had worked with a friend of mine, Ian Seberg, and the whole meeting, because it was people from Europe and people from all over the world, and it went on for 3 days, 2 weeks at a time. So we had to give them something that was going to be memorable. And we did something that they related to, like one was child prodigies, where I had Ben Vereen out. And as Ben talked about being a child prodigy, I brought in kids from Juilliard. I brought in a young girl that was like a young Whitney Houston that ended up singing The Winner in You. So people in that audience, if there was no language barriers, it was an emotional experience that they were touched, and they were like, they couldn't wait to go to the meeting the next day. A lot of the time, I think it pays not to tell people who's going to be at your meeting, even though you want to get the attendees there. But if you're giving a great experience, like Melissa, I'm familiar with your company, when you give those great experiences to people, they know that if they're coming to that meeting next year, there's going to be something fabulous happening and memorable and magical.
So takeaways there, folks. Surprise. There's nothing wrong with surprising and delighting. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
And once you've done it one time, they're going to be excited. And I know, Melissa, your gears are already going on that one. She's probably already done it. But that whole idea of surprising and delighting, I love it. And it really applies to gifting as well. In fact, we just had people come here to do work. I tipped them when they started. They were like, what? I said, I know you're going to do a great job. I'm not going to be here. And by the way, they did an amazing job. But Andrea, so we are getting near the end. What is some of your advice? What questions? Again, we all agree everything has to align the purpose, goals, objectives of an organization, its values, and the metrics, whatever metrics it determines are the ROI. Because to your point, it doesn't have to be a financial ROI. It could be a marketing ROI or a learning ROI. But what kind of advice would you give to, sorry, Sally, we want to break up with you. How can we break up with Sally?
Well, this has been such an interesting conversation, and I've learned so much from all of you, so thank you. But just to build upon what Jaki said, if if you could do it on Zoom, you're not going to do it in the room. But if you add the element of surprise and delight, people are going to want to attend that meeting and conference because they know they're going to get something that they can't get from a Zoom call. So, and it goes back to what we started with, return on emotion.
Yeah.
So Melissa, and by the way, there is one more set of questions. You're not quite off the hook yet. Melissa, what advice would you give your clients to break up with Sally? I love you. By the way, you gave me Sally. That poor Sally's dead.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it comes back to, and I think, you know, Bruce, I'm big on data, really looking at the data story for our experiences and our events. How do we co-create experiences using the information we have about our audiences? And we've got more and better data every year on who's attending our events. There are all, like, if you've got Jabberyak out there now that will tell you the 7 things that people like about, or 7 things that they're interested in. It's on their badge. You can create affinity groups around it so that, you know, people, what they like and how, you know, so they can find their tribe while they're at an event. How we use that data to actually craft the experience and have a reason for why we're doing the things that we're doing in the event is really, really crucial. And we have better tools to get it. We also have better tools to tell the data story after the event, and really staying focused on what is it, the data story that we're trying to tell on the other side from a metric standpoint. And we've got things like the Lively tool, which is like a biometric tool, which will help tell you what you're really in real time, what your people are feeling during the experience. You've got things like Signal, which will tell you social media, what's happening in real time from your event. And you've got things like Any Road, which will tell you, did they actually take did they buy or purchase if you're doing an experiential event? So we've just got so many more tools to help us craft better events and tell a better data story. So if you're looking, I would say if I'm talking with a client, I would want to know, what are you really trying to do? And then let's figure out how we use the data we have to give you a reason for why your agenda should or shouldn't look like that. And how does that get us to the data story we're trying to tell on the other side?
That's terrific. Thank you. Ira, I do want to talk a little bit about, I really like the idea in any event of having opportunities for people to interact to solve problems. And they don't necessarily have to be related to the business, right? It could be, right? For them to have the national sales meeting, we have breakouts. And instead of having lectures or panels that we can do right here, this is living proof. People don't have to fly to get great information. Thank you, folks. But instead, instead of doing a panel discussion, it's a round table. And we discuss, and now, by the way, it could be a personal issue too. How do we deal with strife at work? How do we deal with the dread I feel on Monday night, if you have that? Or it could be, gee, how do we break down silos in this organization so that there's actually a deliverable? Do you think that that is a technique that more, by the way, I'm not going to, the IRF, you just had its great big event. And they had fantastic speakers and all that. But what about having round tables? Because I understand people go to that event with a lot of problems. They're there because they're meeting people to solve a problem. Well, what about actually, instead of having all these panel discussions, have problem desks? And people go and sit and collaborate on, we have a motivation problem in the hospitality industry. We have 100% turnover. How do we solve that? We have a lack of transparency in pricing. How do we solve that? We have a lack of standards. What about using more problem solving in our events?
Yeah, I think we should at every event, including the IRF Invitational I attended. It's a great event, a lot of great networking, learning, but building on and having those kinds of innovation collaborative sessions that we capture the information and work on it after the fact would be great. And Bruce,
you can do it with Chatham House rules, meaning that no one has to be named, so it can be very confidential, and no media is allowed to use any names. Go ahead.
I don't even think it needs to be. I mean, there are different industry groups. You have suppliers, you have third-party agencies, you have destinations. So many different groups to even come to that or any meeting, and they all have their own problems that they're interested in solving. So most of it doesn't really have to be anonymous. Some of it could be. Bruce, I was going to just follow up to the question you asked me before about the most impactful conference, because I do attend a lot. I think the most impactful was a few months ago, the Gartner Chief Sales Officer Conference. Gartner, big analyst type of company. And what was really interesting is I think they do the best of both talk at you. They have their analysts give presentations, and companies pay a lot to go to this conference. It's at least $5,000 to attend. And they get a very high level attendee, VP of sales, chief sales officer, people like that at Fortune 1000 companies. Very hard to get these people out of the office. They go for two reasons. They want to hear those analysts give their presentations with the latest data and research, but they also want to participate in those industry related roundtables so they can talk to their peers. And some of those are at least closed door to media and pretty much anyone else that's not invited. I think they do a great job of that, you know? And lastly, I'll say this, they had one of the keynote speakers, and they had 1,700 attendees. So it's a big audience. One of the keynote speakers really had nothing to do directly with sales or sales management or anything like that. It was a woman who's deaf and blind, and was the first deaf-blind woman to get a law degree from Harvard University. So brilliant woman, and was raised really with no ability to communicate, and they developed for her, and she developed a way for people to type on an interactive keyboard where she could then read the Braille and have conversations with people over the system. And it's crazy. I mean, how great a speaker she was too. How emotionally connected people were to it. And it wasn't like a pity story. I mean, she funny, just, brilliant.
Where was that conference held?
That was in Las Vegas at Caesars.
Huh. And just recently?
Jaki, you're a busy woman.
In April, a couple of months ago. I think it was in May.
Okay.
And by the way, that is proof of how many conferences this guy goes to. I mean, how many last year? I won't even ask.
I don't know.
Jaki. So Jaki, what is your advice now to clients to fire Sally?
I'm all about the engagement and the emotion, and I'm sure some of you have already used this, like Dear World, right? When the experience from the beginning till the end. You know what I'm talking about, Melissa?
They're phenomenal. Yes.
I love them. You walk in, they take their picture, they put their passion, like somebody had feeding homeless or cancer free. And all of a sudden you're sitting with people like at the focus tables also, where you're coming up with solutions to find out about that person that's sitting next to you. You might have a common denominator and you never knew anything about them. And it's sort of keeping it positive, because I'm finding I used to have 24 employees in a DMC. And it's like, how do you engage people and keep those employees? What makes them happy? I find that you can't buy loyalty, but what you can do is you can keep people engaged and give them a reason why they want to be in your company and why they want to become better and grow with the company.
So,
I didn't mean
folks,
to off that.
and you've already given us some great tips on celebrities. I will tell you that we had, when I used to run a big trade show, if you had the right celebrity, it was transformational. You remember some of those events, maybe even you, Melissa. And the celebrity could be a professor. The celebrity could be, and people, but what really counted was not them being up on the stage. And some of this was even before Zoom, or I should say YouTube. What really counted was that emotional connection. I met him or her, and blah blah blah. So, but here's my last question, a little bit out of the normal here thing. One thing that really surprises me about events, Andrea, is the failure to incorporate them into a year-round experience. If I am every year going to be going to an event, to me, there should be a social network around that event, and I should be communicating with that. And we recommend to all of our clients that you literally build, if you want to do it with you could do it with a LinkedIn page. They're the proprietary social networks today, but how do we keep that experience year round? Andrea, is that something we're overlooking, or do you think I'm nuts?
I still think apps have a way to go, because if you're at, say, IMAX, for instance, or whatever, a big industry conference, I want to know, like, I graduated from NYU. I would love to know what other NYU graduates are there, and maybe we can connect. But it doesn't go down to that level. So I think there's a way to go as far as networking, true networking opportunities are concerned.
And even potentially year round. Once I have that app,
right?
Why does it die in 3 days?
And then also too, and then you create tribes. So if I find other NYU graduates, then we can form our own little network that we could continue to the conversation all year long.
And
then
go ahead.
go on. And then
No,
video too. If you have some great sessions, take that video and use that on your social media channels throughout the year. It can't be you have an event and once everyone gets on the plane, it's over. That's when you should just begin.
Well,
That's
Melissa,
kind
you're
of
well, let me just ask you, because I think you even have a tech app. Because my question
Yeah.
would be, why would I want to get all these people together on my own company's app where they're now sharing everything? They network, they know they go to NYU, and then we send them to LinkedIn or Facebook. What? You have an
Well,
app for them. Can't we use our app year round?
well, you want to go where people are too,
Yeah.
right? I'm a working mom. I've got kids in multiple sports. The number of apps I have on my phone it's daunting, to be quite honest. And they're all dinging me at the same time. So it's about attention, right? We're gaming attention at some level. And Jaki and Andrea, you touched on it though. What really, when you're building community with these events, it's about you're making a personal connection, right? And it's about building affinity on things other than just the business content. Right? Business content will get you to one level of connection in the story you're trying to tell, but it's when you make a personal connection, that's when you can actually tell a richer story with your experience. Make a personal connection with Jaki, because I know that, she loves, Jen or dancing or whatever it is, or Andrea and I went to NYU, right? We have something connect on outside of the actual event. That's how you start to build community. So what we talk to clients about is, how do you tell a story before, during, and after that, one contiguous story to build that community? And then what is your multi-touch, multi-month campaign before, during, and after the event? And Andrea, to your point, using video, right? Short form and long form video to help tell that story. Because people are naturally going to go back to LinkedIn. That's just, or to the other social platforms that they use. So it has to be integrated in some way into the community that you're trying to build and the story that you're trying to tell.
Well, I'm going to give you the last word on that, Ira, but I will say this: a very simple way, folks, is simply to have an e-newsletter, right? Just a simple e-newsletter that, instead of selling, helps, right? Instead of always saying, hey, book now, get a pre this or that. No, tips. Or here's what Melissa, one of our attendees, here's what she did. Or Andrea was one of our speakers, so that throughout the year, there's a dialogue of the relationship. That, to me, is the simple, easiest way to do it. Ira, any last thoughts on creating a year-round experience around your event? Because I don't know how you do it, figured out, but to me, it's absurd to have a 3-day event. By the way, here's proof. If we knew that every single year Taylor Swift was coming back to the local stadium, if we have one big enough, we do here in MetLife, but I assure you that I'm going to be getting notifications from Taylor Swift. And she's going to be telling me different things about her life and her story. Why can't we do that in business?
No, we
Ira,
can.
that's the last question.
We can, and to the point people have been making, there are all kinds of technologies that are existing and ones in the pipeline to get people to interact during and then post event. So I think it's how do we organize it? Do we do chapters, or do we do affinity groups or social groups, community based, hey, I'm in New York. Let's go. All the people went to that conference from New York. We should all communicate. It could be any or all of the above, depending on how
Jaki, actually, you're going to get the last word, because it would seem to me a super cool idea would be, and it would be no extra work for everybody on the news, on the company, anyone who attended gets an email from your celebrity afterwards saying she really enjoyed being there. And by the way, here's a discount for my next this or that. Have you ever seen anybody kind of do a post-event follow-up with that famous person?
I do. In fact, I have some clients that are rock stars that were with rock bands. It may not be the Gene Simmons, but it might have been the lead singer of Quiet Riot or something like that. And these guys, I'll say, hey, for a couple $1,000, will you do a quick video for me? And what I'll do is we'll do like 2 or 3 videos, like, hey, come rock with us at our convention next year at blah, blah, blah. And they'll mention the people's name, and we'd love seeing you in Vegas. And I'm an old school with new tricks. I love, I still send little, love notes to my clients, and little crazy notes and crazy cards. And I also send the emails with, crazy flyers that people are going to look at, just to say, I love that. And then boom, they can delete it. But I love sending messages. People want to be remembered. I'm all about philanthropy too. Maybe we did something interesting and you get a celebrity or even somebody from the company that says, hey, send us a pair of socks so we can keep those kids warm for Christmas or whatever. You do that before the holidays. And I know they do it with HSMA here. We get to buy an outfit for a child that's in school with no clothes. And all of a sudden they've created a big community because we've all done something and we felt good. And it was better than going out shopping for ourselves. We did something, A, for the organization, but B, to help somebody. Oh.
And it was aligned with your mission. So it makes total sense. By the way, one little hint with dealing with the celebrities, I always felt that the easiest ones to work with were not the current stars, they were the one-hit wonders. Like the guy, well, I won't name any names to embarrass them, but they had their day in the sun and they have enough money to live forever, but now they're playing 2-bit little, clubs and they love this. They love the, but anyway, this has been terrific, folks. And what we do, we summarize all these great points into a feature article so that folks after this will not have to watch the video if they don't want to watch all of it. We'll have the key points in there. We're going to put it in our library, all of you, so it's a permanent record of innovation in meetings. So I want to thank all of you, Melissa Van Dyke, Ira Ozer, Andrea Doyle, as always, Jaki Baskow. Pleasure to meet you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, all. Love the conversation.
Thanks, everybody.